everyone, Leanne here from My Sewing Adventures. I'm here with my first published tutorial. I've tried to make my sew along video as easy as I can for a bag that is quite complex. So today we're doing the add-on for the Scholars Pack. Now, it isn't an easy pattern. I'd say it's an intermediate to advanced pattern only because there's so many pieces to it. Now, as you can see, lots of pockets. We always love lots of pockets. And this one certainly delivers. Now, I've probably made a good 10 of the original Scholars Packs. It is my favorite backpack pattern. And the add-on is just taking a new twist on that front panel. So rather than a singular front pocket, what Jazzy has done this time is made two 3D pockets and, let's try and do this one-handed, a very, very smart wide opening front pocket. Now this is perfect for school, for keeping everything organized, and even for work. It holds documents, it holds keys, it holds pens, it holds everything that you need. Now in this version, I've used a cotton canvas exterior, I've used a waterproof canvas lining, and I've used touches of vinyl all throughout the bag. The front features our top 3D pocket with another little pocket in there. The construction of the two 3D pockets is very, very similar. And look, it is achievable. I use a domestic machine, my Benina. It is a workhorse of a domestic machine. However, this is very achievable pretty much for any bag maker who wants to give it a go. The written instructions are very, very thorough. And hopefully this video tutorial will help you. So I've tried to cover all bases. Bear with me because it is my first published tutorial. And as I go along creating more and more tutorials, I will also just tweak things, improve things as we go. But hey, we're all going to start somewhere. So back to this one. 3D pockets on the front, drink bottle holders on the side, which I do love the construction of those. So you saw our wide opening front pocket, our big interior or central pocket with our sleeve pocket, slip and zip pocket, and also on the back we have our laptop pocket. So like I said, this is perfect for school, especially kids that carry a laptop. Keeps it safe, especially if you use a waterproof lining. And on the rear we have even more pockets. So shall we start this adventure together? Over to the machines. I hope you've picked your fabric. I hope you cut your pattern pieces out. Let's get started. Hey everyone, we are back with the next tutorial. So this one is for the add-on pack to the Scholars Pack by Sewfisticated. Now, I'd say the Scholars Pack is probably my most made bag. I think I've made pretty good 15 of those so far, and I can't get sick of that pattern. It is such a versatile backpack that you can customize to suit your needs. You can add on pockets, you can subtract pockets, you can have the laptop section, whatever you wish you can do. And the add-on pack is just adding another layer of versatility to this bag by adding those two 3D front pockets and also an entire opening front section. Now for this project, I am going to be using this gorgeous Dragonfly canvas. Now I bought this originally from Inklings and the Kraken. However, this print is going to be available in the next pre-order from Jazzy in all your favorite bases. I'm also using a gorgeous green 420D hex lining, Vibrant View canvas, 600D hex as well, and some navy blue synthetic leather, green zipper tape, and also this bias binding from Jazzy. So I actually received this for another project. I didn't use it, however, it is going to go perfectly with our colour tones. Shall we get started? So here we are with our first step, which is our internal slip pocket. We need a C1 main lining. So this is my 420D hex lining, waterproof, and it's got that nice little pattern. And our two C3 pieces.
and a piece of binding or fold over elastic, whatever you want to use. You can even use a strip of vinyl or synthetic leather. First steps first, what we need to do is get our slip pocket pieces right sides together, and we are going to sew around the 3 sides. So with our 1/4 inch seam allowance, leaving that top bit open so we can turn it out and top stitch it with our binding piece. So over to the machine, we're first going to sew around those 3 sides. So now that we've sewn around all 3 edges, we need to clip our corners to reduce bulk. So just get your scissors, cutting across the corner here, being careful not to cut into your stitching line, and on the other side. Now we are going to turn it right side out and just find a chopstick or something blunt just to push out those corners. Nothing too pointy, otherwise you risk pushing through those stitches. So that'll do. My chopstick has gone walkabout somewhere. No doubt one of the kids has sticky fingers. Okay, so pushing out those corners. I'm going to take this over to my iron, give it a press and come back. Now that's nicely pressed, obviously be careful with the amount of heat that you use on your selected material. This is a cotton, so we're pretty safe to use a high heat. Now I'm going to grab my binding tape. I've already pressed it in half. I'm going to fold it over the edge. I allow enough space either side so later on I can fold it back and stick it down like that. So I'm going to take this over to my machine, use a slightly longer stitch length, about 3.5 to 4 mil, and top stitch that binding down to finish the top edge of this slip pocket. So there we have our almost complete slip pocket. So I've top stitched along the top there. We're going to pop this aside for now and we'll do our zipper pocket first. That way we can adjust the placing for this slip pocket. So just pop it to the side and grab your C1 lining piece. First things first, we're going to find the center of this piece. So folding together the edges, just a small stick top and bottom. It's always handy to do this with all your main pieces, especially later at final construction. That way we can meet up center points. Now from the top edge, we're going to need to mark 2 inches down and center vertically. So 2 inches down horizontally. This will give us a placement guide for where our zipper pocket will be. So 2 inches down and then just a small mark for center. There we go. So there's our marks. We're going to grab our slip pocket. So, not our slip pocket, our zip pocket. What am I talking about? Our zip pocket. If it's non-directional, don't worry about which end. So making a mark 3/4 of an inch from the top. About 1/2 inch down. I like to do slightly less, but that is completely up to you. As long as your teeth have enough room. And I just do a line 1 inch from each side. And to make it easier for lining up, I mark the top of this one, the top center. There we go. Grab some pins, making sure that you only pin it if your fabric doesn't have any sort of protective coating that you can hurt by pinning. So just a couple of pins just to hold it in place. 1 and 2. Now, what we need to do is sew along the long edges, shorter stitch length, just to make sure that it stays put. Once you've done that, you're going to cut a V at each end and a long line connecting those V points, and then we can turn it through. For this step, you're also going to need your other piece for the zip pocket lining, your zipper tape and your zipper pull. So over to the machine, let's sew those 2 long edges with our shorter stitch length. We're going to cut it and turn it and come back to that. So back from my machine, I've sewn those 2 long edges and I have created those cuts, that V shape, long line and another V. Now we turn it through. So wrong sides are together. I'll be taking it over to my machine. We'll give it a good press and really flatten out those lines, making sure that the seam is right on the edge there and it's nice and flat. So our zipper opening is now nice and flat, pressed it nicely. Good thing about the 420D hex is there's no worries about melting it. My iron is set on quite a high heat and it works out beautifully and nice and flat there. So for our zipper tape, I'm going to put it on some double-sided tape. This is just 1/4 inch. Just press it down. I use so much double-sided tape, but it is an absolute game changer for sewing. Just makes things so much easier to stay put. Okay, press that down. At this point I will also add my zipper pull. I'm just using a handmade one. I did order some dragonfly zipper pulls, but unfortunately they've gone a little bit amiss in the post, so I won't be able to wait for those. That's okay. When this comes out, this dragonfly fabric, when it's released in Jazzy's next pre-order, I will be stocking up on it because I love it. So pull the tape off each side. Now, I like my zipper pulls closing to the left. There's no rule either way. I just like to do it that way, really. So centering your zipper in that opening. I've chosen to use my navy zipper tape for the inside here just for a bit of contrast. For the exterior though, I will be using a green to contrast with the blue. Alright. Press, press, press. Okay, back to the machine. Slightly longer stitch length, just about a 3mm length, and sew around all 4 sides to attach that zipper tape. So our zipper box is now all sewn, all 4 sides. We're going to turn it over, grab our second zipper pocket lining, pop it on top and line up those sides, clip it, and then all we need to do to finish off this zipper box is sew around all 4 sides to secure. There is no need to leave any sides open because this is a bound finish bag. We don't need to allow for a turning hole. Okay, so off to the machine around all 4 sides with your normal 2.5mm stitch length. Okay, our zipper pocket is now complete. I've sewn all 4 sides on the rear to fix that lining. Now we need to attach our slip pocket to this panel. One handy step I've found, and I speak from experience, is to secure the back of your zipper pocket up and over. Why? Because if you don't, you'll be like me and you will inevitably sew through it when you're attaching your slip pocket. For this one, we need to mark 2 inches up from the bottom. And because we marked the centers earlier, makes it nice and easy to find the center here. So just a mark, just to make it easy. Now, I have folded over the edges of my binding and just secured with double-sided tape. I'll just pop a mark on here for afterwards to apply rivets. And then I just need to grab some pins. I fold this in half just to find the center, line it up with our center marking on our panel, grab our pin, which is always sticky and I don't know why, and just pin it through. Of course you can use double-sided tape for this step or clips if you've got clips that are big enough, but luckily I can use pins with this one and I certainly have plenty of those. Oh, whether they're sharp or not is another matter. Okay, so pinned, back to the machine. I'll change my thread color to a blue and we're going to sew around these 3 sides. So top stitching down a slightly longer stitch length and then I'll secure the top corners with rivets and come back. So here is our completed panel. Our slip pocket has been attached. I've used 2 rivets, one in each top corner to secure those, and our zipper pocket is now done. So I'm going to just pop this one aside, which means throw it on the floor in this room. And then we're going to move on to our sleeve pocket, which is piece C4. So you need 2 of those. I've just gone with a mix of Vibrant View and some twill. And also another one, our D1 lining. So this goes at the back, and this is connected to the laptop pocket. So what we're going to do is first take our sleeve linings, sew the top long and bottom long edges with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So right side together for those, sew along the top and the bottom with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So here we have our completed sleeve pocket. I sewed the top and bottom edges with that 1/4 inch seam allowance, turned it the right way out, and then just top stitch along those top and bottom edges. So time to attach it to our other panel. I believe it's our D1 panel. So long sides together, we want to find the center of top and bottom again. Now you could do this at the start at the same time as all the other panels, but I am not that organized, so I just do it as I go. Then we're going to get our ruler. We're going to find 2 inches from the bottom. Just a small mark on each side is fine. And then some clips. We're going to line this up. So right side up on top of the right side of this. 2 inches up. So we want to scrunch it up a little bit, fold it up. That way we get that nice space to store extra stuff you need. I find it really great for clothes, especially if you're making this for a school backpack. We all need that, our kids know that our kids need a spare change of clothes. The last week of term, my son decided to, I think it was almost a dive into a big muddy puddle and just got completely soaked. So thank goodness his scholars pack had plenty of room for some spare clothes. So back to the machine, we're going to just baste those sides because that'll be secured later with our stay stitches. So baste those with a nice long stitch length. So here we are, our completed sleeve pocket. So as you can see, it does sit up nicely, and that way it just allows for plenty of space. There we go, inside the bag. What I like to do at this stage though, just so I can make sure I don't sew over it later, is just to pleat it. It doesn't have to be that neat. Making sure that your whole panel stays flat, and I like to just pop a pin through all the layers top and bottom, just for now, just so this stays together, and when I'm sewing it later it doesn't go into the seams side to side. We can now pop this aside and we're going to start on our front panel interior. Okie doke, so the first step to creating our front pocket is to tackle the zippers. So our ZA zipper, ZA3 zipper, this is going to go on that front outer pocket. This one is our ZBB3 zipper, which is going to go in the interior. We also need our ZT zipper tabs, one for the interior, one for the exterior, and 2 zipper pulls. So to start, we're going to take our scissors and we will cut each zipper tab into 4 pieces, 4 equal pieces. So fold it over and cut, fold it over and cut again, that one, and then for our interior piece, same thing. Okay. Pop your zipper pulls on. Really not good if you forget this bit, to be honest. We can always go back and start again and undo things, but you know what? Let's just do it now before we forget. Unlike me though, make sure that it is equal on both sides. Oh my goodness. Okay, that took a lot longer than it should have. Then we are going to get our clips. These will do. Right side down for one. Now you can either baste it before you add the lining, which I will probably do, to be honest, because my machine can be a little bit picky and it likes to move my zipper tabs around on such small pieces. So I will baste those first. Same with this one. So just make sure the shinier side of the hex is down. The shinier side is our right side. And for the opposite piece, same thing, right side down. Okay, so I'll take these over to my machine and I'm going to baste each end. Once I've done that, I'll come back, flip it on over, and then what we need to do is get our lining pieces and we are going to put them on right side facing the wrong side of the zipper, and same for that one, and sew it then with a 3/8 of an inch or 1 centimeter seam allowance. Okay, so these are now sewn. You can see my basting stitch and the 1 centimeter seam allowance. What we're going to do now is turn these zipper tabs right side out. Give them a press if you want to, otherwise just give them a pull. Grab a clip, clip it. Do that for the other end. We shall do this for both. There we go. I'm not worried if it doesn't line up perfectly. There we go. Back to the machine, if I can grab a clip, and then we shall sew around all these 4 sides. So top stitch across here, and then if you want, base stitch around the 3 remaining sides. Do that for both zippers. Here are our completed zippers. So zipper tabs have been attached and top stitch or basted around each side. Let's set these aside for now and move on with our BB3, which is our mesh or vinyl, clear vinyl pocket. So I'm using a jelly mesh from Sewfisticated. I just find it is really durable compared to the clear TPU vinyl, which can become brittle and break down over time. This stuff will not. This stuff is very durable, it's soft, and it's fine to use on my domestic machine. So we have our piece here. We're also going to need our binding option for the top of this. So again, I'm just using that binding tape that I have pressed in half. We're going to take it over to the machine, slip it in, and just top stitch that down. So here is our completed BB3 pocket with the binding along the top. Makes it nice and neat. And like I said, the jelly mesh is really, really good. It's nice and stable. So we can pop this aside as well, and we're moving on to our BB1 mesh pocket. So this is the slightly bigger one. What we want to do first is just mark the center of it. This will make it a lot easier when it comes to applying our fold over elastic. That way we have a center point in both. A clip might have been a better option today. Okay, that's our center marked. We grab our length of fold over elastic. I'm just using blue because that's all I had really. So center of that again. So we're going to meet the centers. Now it can be fiddly, I'm not going to lie, but once you've done it a few times it does get a lot easier. So clip that. Make sure you get one of your stronger clips so it doesn't shift. Right. clip that, and then the starting point, clip, end point, clip that as well. Now when you're sewing this, try not to pull too much. What we want to do is just try and pull the fold over elastic just enough to flatten out that mesh pocket. Try to avoid overstretching it. So take it to your machine, go slow, use a longer stitch length, and just edge stitch that fold over elastic down to the top of your mesh, and we'll take it from there. So there we have our completed BB1 pocket. So as you can see, the mesh is stretched nice and evenly, not pulling it too tight. The pleats are quite even, so when we stretch it out, there's no fold over. Okay, pop this one aside as well. So we're going to move on to our BB2 in preparation for attaching to our zipper pocket. So this is a slightly smaller piece of mesh. We also have our remaining fold over elastic. So same thing again, my method, I fold it in half. Now, not all fold over elastic is created equally. Some has more stretch than others. Some's different widths as well. You find what you feel is best for you, and what's available, of course, as well, is always the other problem, isn't it? I have a huge stock of fold over elastic. I'm not quite sure why I do. I think maybe from when I was sewing more clothes, maybe, not sure. I just have heaps of it. So I'm really, really glad to find a use for it. So let's match up the centers again. Fold that over, clip. I'll use my stronger clips this time. The other ones want to slip. This end, just give yourself a little bit of overhang on that fold over elastic. So give yourself a bit of leeway. It makes it a lot easier when you're starting and stopping the stitching. And the other end. Right. Okay, back to the machine. Same thing. Just like the last method, edge stitching that. Try not to pull it too hard. Pull it nice and evenly as you go. Mesh pocket. You wouldn't believe how many takes it took me just to say mesh pocket then. Right, so that one's done. We need to bind this bottom edge. So I have a piece of binding tape. I have marked the center and I've got my double-sided tape here. What I've done is I've just cut that double-sided tape there so I can peel off the center first. I've had bad luck, to be honest, when I do mesh pockets and double-sided tape. I tend to stuff it up. And then when I pull the mesh off, it all stretches and goes horrible, so we don't want to do that. So we're marking, centering that mesh pocket to the center of our binding tape, and this is why I've only removed a little portion of that paper off the double-sided tape. So I can stick down that center. So nice and tacky there. I'll take off just to start here. Look, if you're braver than me, you can take off all of it. I just prefer to do it this way. I'd rather go slow and steady when it comes to this. As much as I'm normally a very, very impatient person, I don't have time to do things 3 times in a row. I've got 2 kids that don't care that mummy wants to do some sewing. All right, so for us, just to make this fit, because as you can see, that mesh pocket is bigger, is longer than the binding tape, we're going to make some little pleats. So just remove the rest of that tape, the backing of the tape, and just do little pleats that press outwards. They only need to be small, don't need to be big. There we go. And then we're going to do the other side as well. Little pleats, and you can see as you can see, the double-sided tape sticks through the mesh. Okay, and then just fold it up and over. And then we're going to take it to our machine and stitch it to secure. Okay, so after some more than mildly infuriating thread breakage issues, we're here. So our binding tape is now sewn on. We need to grab our zipper, which is the longer one, and we are going to apply our double-sided tape top and bottom. This is almost a necessity in this step, just to make things a lot easier for you, because pinning would be rather hard. So this is going to be my last step before I go and get a coffee, because I am tired. Rightio. Okay, press down. So you just orientate the zipper however you like it. I like my zippers closing to the left. No rules, whichever way you want. So we're going to remove the top double-sided tape backing. Not that I can ever stick it down. Even out your mesh pocket, so there's about 1/4 of an inch either side. Stick it down there. Just making sure that you get it nice and even in relation to the zipper tape. You don't want it being wavy. Okay, good. Now we're going to sew here, along here, with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, so nice and close to that zipper tape. Now our mesh pocket is attached to the top of our zipper. We're going to retrieve our vinyl pocket, peeling off the other side of the double-sided tape. Alright, again, making sure that when you're applying it, you're pressing down nice and evenly and no bulges in that zipper tape. Okay, again, just top stitching nice and close to that zipper tape. On a side note, unintentionally matched this very nicely, or I could say it was intentional, not sure. Now that is complete and it's looking really, really good. So we are going to grab our lining piece. Same thing again, I'm just going to mark those centers. Okay. So place this piece on top. Line it up so it is center. I'm not too worried if it's a couple of mil short, because that will be more than taken up. Grab some clips, because we don't want to clip through our jelly vinyl. I can rest assured the fact it's a couple of mil short is due to my not so amazing cutting. That's where the cut and sews have been a saviour for me, actually. It made me realise possibly how inaccurate my cutting actually is. If you haven't tried the cut and sews, make sure next round that you grab some, because they are amazing. So clip all the way around, going up. Okay, now that it is clipped, what we're going to do is secure our mesh pocket in here. So first steps first is we're just going to do another line of top stitching over here. This is going to separate the mesh pocket from our vinyl pocket. So I'm just going to go over the top of the stitches that I've already done. Matching stitch length, you won't even see it. So first steps first, top stitch along here, and then we can go back and you can baste all the way around to secure this pocket. Okay, so now I have top stitched along here just to separate that mesh pocket from the vinyl pocket, and I have basted around the edges to secure this exterior pocket to the lining. Now all we need to do is just to sew a center line in the mesh pocket, just to separate into two pockets, and it will help to stretch that out a bit. So get the ruler. This can be a little bit tricky. You can bend it in half. What I like to do is just try and, probably unsuccessfully, there we go, line it up with that center mark. Look, if it's a couple of mil off either side, it is not going to matter. Just chalk mark it. Then I'll pin it. And we're just going to do a line of stitching. So I go up, back stitch a few times, and then go back down the other way. That way you have 2 lines of stitching. So there we go. So I've done my 2 lines of stitching, so that separates our mesh pocket into 2 separate pockets. So now all I've got to do is just flip it over. I'm just going to trim the excess off. There. Excess zipper tab. And any extra mesh or bias or fold over elastic. Same with that side. Look, it doesn't have to be too neat. It's just getting the majority of that excess off. Okay. All right. There we go. So we can pop this one aside, and we're going to go with our other side of the front interior. Okay, so over to the next side of our front pocket. We need our AB lining. This is the main piece that you're going to see, and we need our remaining mesh pocket. So what we're going to do is we're going to get our mesh pocket, line it up down the bottom, and we're going to clip the sides because it is wider than our AB lining. So we're going to clip the sides, that side. Tell me, do you have a very mixed collection of clips like me? I don't know where I've picked up most of these, but well, they're in my sewing room now, so this is where they're going to stay. Okay, go back to your machine and just baste the sides, just the 2 sides there. Okie dokie, now we have basted the sides here. We're going to now find the center of both the AB and the mesh pocket. So I'm just going to do this by folding it in half there. I'm just going to do a little snip there. Keeping it folded in half. I'm going to find some sort of clip. There we go. So we're going to match the centers up, and then we're going to sew a line a 1/2 inch either side of the center line. So this line will be 1 inch apart all the way up. So I like to start from the bottom, sew a line, then go back down, and then 1 inch over, sew a line, and go back down. So go do that at your machine and then come back here. So we've now sewn our little pen pocket. This will be really handy for later. There we go. Okay, so now we just have to finish this mesh pocket. So we need to just form 2 pleats. So just pinch the mesh and try and make the 2 pleats folded outwards. Ish, about there. There's no set measurement, just wherever you think it sits nicely. And not too close to that corner. Same on the other side. Make sure it's just about even, or equal rather. Cut the other one. Just adjust it as you need. If you find that you need to just fold over a little bit more of the mesh. Okay, back to the machine and just finish basting that bottom edge with the pleats to hold it in place. Rightio, so that is done. We've basted along the bottom edge, so all sides should be basted, and we have that center line there. All I'm going to do now is just quickly cut off any of the excess mesh pocket, because obviously we're attaching a square mesh pocket to a rounded edge. There. Okay, nice little bit. Now we need our lining piece, so our AB lining piece. We're going to pop it right side together. clip along the top there. Okay, so once you've clipped that, take it back to your machine and we're going to do a 1/4 inch seam allowance up the top there. Okay, so that's now sewn across the top. Just clip the corners just to reduce bulk. We're going to turn it right side out, take it over to our ironing board, and we're just going to press that top edge just to make it nice and flat. If you're like me, your iron will probably only ever get used for sewing. I don't iron clothes. I'm pretty bad like that. Okay, back to the machine and just top stitch along that top edge there. If you want to as well, you can baste around the perimeter of that. Okay, here we have our completed pocket. So I've top stitched along the edge, the top edge there, and basted around the sides. Last step for this part is just to attach this to our main lining. Baste it around the 3 sides, leaving the top open as a slip pocket. So there we have it. I've now basted this to our main lining. All we got to do now is attach it to our first interior panel that we did. So this will be inside the front of the main compartment. So to do that, as I usually do, I just grab my stabilizer. This time I'm using a medium thickness mesh. So this is just how I do it. You don't have to do it like I do it, but I keep my foam out of the seam allowance. Because I use a domestic machine, I have to be wary of how thick my material is. So I just secure it from the back to keep it center. Then I go over to my right side. I don't like using double-sided tape when it comes to this sort of stuff because it can contort the canvas, the hex, as I stab myself with a pin. Okay. Oh, do you find that your pins go really blunt really quickly, or is it just me? Okay, so that's attached now. We grab our other pocket, match up the center, and then we're just going to baste them together just with a nice long stitch. Just take your time to make sure that they match up nicely. Okay, so now that we have secured that, we can pop that aside and we are going to move on with our key leash. So getting ready to finish with our front panels. So here's our key leash piece. What we need to do is center fold it and then fold them again. So bringing our ironing board out, long edges towards the middle. Just press. I'm just using some twill for this one. So open it up and then take one log edge and press it to that center crease. Do the same thing here. Now we're going to do things a little bit differently with this one. I'll show you in a second. So for the majority of it, you can fold it back in and just secure it with clips. Just fold it along. So you will need a 20mm or 3/4 inch swivel clip for this one. So clip it so right sides are out. We're going to take one short end and we're going to open out the fold and then fold it back on itself. So these edges are right side together. So you'll see the 2 raw ends of each piece. There. So we're going to sew along this line with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So there is our key leash completed. I've applied my rivet, but as I said before, if you don't have a rivet press, you can just do a line of top stitching along there to secure it. So pop that one aside for now. And now we're going to start working on our front 3D pockets, which is very, very cool. So firstly, we will need to retrieve our ZA3 zipper that we completed earlier. We'll need our A5 stabilizer. This one is just a light stabilizer from Sewfisticated. I'm using a self-adhesive because I kind of forgot to order some more sew-in, but also because I'm using cotton canvas, this is fine. That one, our A7, A9 stabilizer pieces, our ZA6 zipper and a zipper pull, our A3, which is our exterior, and we have 3 A4 linings to go with that, our A6 piece and our A8 piece. So lots of pieces, Don't stress though, it's all going to make sense very, very shortly. So if you would like to do a logo tag, you most certainly can. So this one needs to go on our A3 piece. Up to you. I'm unsure either way. I'll go have a quick look through my logo stash and just see if I want to apply one. So I've decided that I'm going to put my logo tag on that lower zipper pocket. Just because I can, really. I think my logo tag might be a little bit too big for this pocket. So our first step for this top zipper pocket, it's late in the day, I really can't talk very well at the moment. We need to trim a little bit off here because we're going to be applying our zipper through here. So we need to be able to attach it. So I am going to draw a line 1 3/8 of an inch up. There. Now the rotary cutter and I are not friends, so I don't tend to use mine too much to be honest. I just don't feel like I'm very accurate with it. I'm not quite sure why. Maybe I have the wrong cutter, or maybe I'm just really not good at it. So we're going to get our 2 different pieces. So you're only going to do this to one of the linings, okay? Leave the other 2 alone. All right. Do you ever get that decision paralysis when you're about to cut something and it makes all the difference? There we go. That one. And it's a very dark, gloomy day here in Melbourne today, so I think it affects your energy and your mood a bit, doesn't it? There. Okay. So our 2 pieces here. Now we're going to take our ZA3 zipper and put it on here. So I'm just going to get a piece of double-sided tape with bonus thread attached. Put it along the top there. Okay. Now again, I prefer my zipper pull closing to the left. Up to you entirely. All right. So make sure it is even. There. Okay. Stick it. Press down. Grab your, almost did it wrong, didn't I? Your lining piece. And we're going to grab our clips, which are always out of reach, and put it down the bottom there. Here comes the rain again. Okay. Winter is definitely on its way. So clip across here. Cool. Okay. Now that that's clipped, we are going to take it over to the machine and we're going to sew that with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I'm going to go do that, then we'll come back. Okay, so I've sewn that with that 1/4 inch seam allowance here. We're going to trim the corners to reduce bulk. Turn my iron back on. Turn right side out. I'm going to take it over to my ironing board to press. Well, ironing mat is probably more accurate. We're going to press that. Then we're going to go back to the machine and top stitch along that line. And then we're going to attach the top the same way. So right sides together, sandwiching the zipper between the lining and the exterior, 1/4 inch seam allowance, turn it out and top stitch. Okay, so we have secured our zipper pocket and the lining as well. So now I'm just going to take my stabilizer. So like I said earlier, a sew-in stabilizer would be a better option for this, but I didn't have any. So after this, I need to do a nice big order with Juzzy to restock. So all we need to do, let's do it this way. Take our exterior, take a lining piece, right side up. So we're going to put this wrong side down and just clip around, just quickly to secure. Don't worry about doing too many clips at the moment. We just want to make sure that these edges match up somewhat. And then we're going to get our other piece. So wrong side to wrong side, because this is making up our front pocket. I know it seems like a lot of different pieces, but that's okay. It's the fun of zipper pockets. Now, I think I would have said this at the start of this video, which I haven't filmed yet because I haven't finished the bag. This is my first time making the add-on, so I'm in the deep end with you guys. You're seeing warts and all when it comes to this sewing, so I'm learning as I go as well. But hey, that's all part of it. So we got exterior, right side up, wrong side up. So that way our stabilizer is sandwiched in between these two, and through our zipper pocket we'll see the right side of the fabric. Take this over to your machine and baste around all the outside edges, and we're getting a little bit closer to constructing this front 3D pocket. Okay, so there we have our completed upper front pocket. So looking really nice. Stabilizer is hidden in between the layers. There we go. Okay, so now we need to work on the actual gusset that is going to hold this to our front panel. So pop that aside for now. We need our ZA6. We need our zipper. So what we're going to do now is to apply some double-sided tape. My fabric's directional. There is a very good reason why I use a lot of directional fabric, because I don't have the patience to worry about direction when I cut. So it doesn't really matter for me which end this goes on. But your choice on this one, whether you use even just a plain colour. So we're going to get our zipper and we're going to put it right side down. Now, up to you if you want to add your zipper pull. Maybe let's just do it now so we don't forget later. Because I'm pretty sure we've all been there where we have to unpick something because we forgot to put the zipper on. I went quite a while without having to do that, and then I think I did 3 or 4 in a row until I almost had to write a sign for myself. Okay, so in terms of which way you want it to close, I'm just going to put it so it's closing that way. We're going to apply our zipper tape onto our ZA6. There we go. Alright, so we're going to take this over to our machine now and sew along here with our normal 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, I'm back. So we've done our 1/4 inch seam allowance along here. Let's flip it on over to the wrong side. We need to make a marking 3/4 of an inch down from this top edge. So along this mark line, our trusty double-sided tape. Peel it off. Fold this top edge down to meet that line. You can press it as well if you want to. I'm just going to use my tape because it's right there. Okay. Apply another line of double-sided tape along there. Now, I'm just going to turn it around and finger press that zipper down. You can iron it, just don't use a hugely high heat. We're going to get our A7 stabilizer and just pop it along there, just so it's tucked up near that zipper tape. Then we're going to peel our backing off if it wants to come off. There we go. Peel that off. And we're going to fold, keeping that there, fold this line over so it meets or ever so slightly goes over that previous line of stitching. I'm talking, you know, 1/2 mil, not much. I don't even know what that is in imperial. I am an Aussie, so we use metric here. So tiny bit. Press it down. Because I'm using cotton canvas, I can pin it just to add that little bit of extra security. The double-sided tape should do the job, but if I can pin it, why not really? All right, back to the machine after this. So we can turn it over to the right side. There we go. Top stitch along this line here. Okay, so I've top stitched along here. Now we need to attach the front A6 top gusset to our A8 bottom gusset. So making sure that the fabric side is towards the center of your A8. Line up that short end. Don't worry if your zipper is overhanging ever so slightly. You need to line up the fabric. Just pop a clip there to secure it. Then we're gonna, so right side up, fold it over, and just manipulate it, because don't worry, it will fit perfectly. Don't be afraid to add extra clips where you need to. Just mess it around a little bit until you get that halfway point. It'll be tight, but it will fit. All right, where's my good clips? My hold everything clips. Always out of reach. Okay, there we go. So by the time you sort of squish it around a little bit, it will sit flat. Clip, clip, clippy clip, clip, and clip that tape again. Now I will base this first. Once I'm happy with it, I'll do my 3/8 of an inch or 1 centimeter seam allowance. But I'm going to baste it first to make sure I'm happy with it. Once you've done that, same on the other side. So here we have our stitched zipper gusset. So centimetre seam allowance at each end. We're just going to clip the fabric end just to reduce bulk. Don't clip into the zipper. Okay, turn it right side out. So I've chosen to use a 600D hex lining for the bottom gusset, just again being wary of how much bulk we're going to add in. So there we go, there's our gusset. Pull on it just to make sure it turned out nicely. Make sure your zipper pull is on there. Grab your A9 stabilizer and we're going to slot it in here. Just push it in so it meets the fold. Again, the Jazzy's light stabilizer is really good for this one too. Just gives it that bit of structure and padding without being too much. My stabilizer might be just a smidge too long. It's okay. I'll go back and adjust it to the other end as well, just to make sure. Alright. Yep, that's right. Okay, so back to the machine. Top stitch, baste, and then top stitch down that end. Okay, now we are back. So it is a new day for me. It's a nice rainy cold Saturday here in Melbourne, but it's a perfect time while the kids are watching a movie to keep going with this one. So the next step is to attach our gusset to our front pocket. Now, before I do that, I like to deviate from the instructions a little bit. I attach my binding prior to attaching the gusset. So all I do is I cut strips, 1.5-inch strips of fabric. This is just a homespun cotton from here at Spotlight here in Australia. I've measured it, I've joined it into a loop, the same circumference as our gusset. So all I do, so the end that we're going to be attaching to our front pocket, which is a zipper side, all I'm going to do is come along and just baste my loop around the gusset and move on from there. So I'm going to go do that. Now, you do not have to do it this way. You can stick with the instructions as they're written and bind afterwards. This is just a method that I've started using and I'm used to now. Okay, so I've attached my binding to the wrong side of my gusset. Like I said, don't have to do it this way. This is just the way that I do it. So we're going to find the centers of both pieces just to make it easier for matching up. So folding together, pinch, so you can roughly get it there. Now, I might just go for gold and also try and find all the quarter points as well, just so we can be assured that we're stretching or fitting our gusset easier. So let's find the center points on our long side and also the center points on our short side. Same at the other end. Just little snips. Now we've done our front piece, so let's do our gusset. So I'll just turn it right side out because, I don't know, if you're like me, you've picked up some weird little habits sewing that probably make no sense whatsoever, but we just do it that way. So when it comes to your zipper side, just be sure not to cut too far in. So just tiny snip or pin or mark with the texter, whichever your method. Now, I just like to apply the clip to the other side just to, I don't need to do that side yet. What I might do though, while I'm able to, is just mark it. I'm not sure if I'll need this bit yet. Like I said, I haven't actually made this pattern, so we are experiencing this at the same time, but there is no harm in just applying a little bit of a chalk line. What it does help us do though, is find our quarter points. So match that up. And again, this time we'll do our chalk line on this side because being a finished edge, we can't cut into it. That would make me very sad later on. Okay, the same thing on this side, matching those marks up, but because this is our raw side, I can cut into it. Right, so next step is to clip it. So grab my magnetized clips. So right side up, top is center of the top of the zipper. We're going to do right sides together. So there's our center mark. You may find it easier to do this with the zipper undone. That's up to you. I'm not going to tell you how to live your life on that one. So what I'll start doing, see what I mean about these little hooks? I don't know if I've mentioned it before, but I've had these hooks these clips for ages, and these little hooks annoy me all the time, but I have done nothing about it whatsoever. And let's face it, I probably won't do anything about it. I think these are actually designed to hang curtains. They're that strong. They're brilliant like that. Right, so clip. This is where we can get our quarter marking. There. Alright. And the other side. Where's our quarter marking? There it is. That way we can just be assured that we've evenly distributed the gusset around. So what I'm going to do is continue clipping. As you can see, there's plenty of space for it to go. If you do find that it is a little bit tight on the bottom of the gusset, just do tiny little snips into the corners here and it will help to clip it out there. So I'm going to need my different scissors. I think these are actually kitchen scissors, to be honest, but I find them really helpful when I'm cutting really thick seams. They just seem to work a bit better. Now, I do not recommend snipping into your zipper tape. If you really have to, tiny little snips, and maybe consider singeing those snips with your lighter, just so they don't tear further. Okay. So clip. See, that did not require really, I probably didn't even need to clip that then, but here we are, no harm caused. As long as it's within our seam allowance, you are fine. All right, I'm just going to continue clipping all around there and then take it to our machine to sew. So now my gusset is attached to my front panel, as you can see from this side. Now my method is for binding. All I need to do is pull this binding tape over, grab my clips. I like to do the double fold, that's why I use a reasonably thin cotton. I just find that it's got a little bit of stretch in it and it's not too bulky for my domestic machine. I tried to get as close a match to the green as I could, which is good for homespun because there is plenty of different colours available. So all I need to do is go around here, clip that binding down, then I'll take it back to my machine and use a slightly longer stitch length just to finish that binding tape off. So there we go, there is our completed top 3D pocket, so bound, nice and neat. Let's turn it on out. Pushing those corners out, especially along the bottom, whereas that's a tiny bit thicker. There we go. A couple of threads that I'll finish and neaten up soon. Perfect. Okay, so that one's done. What we now need to do is move on to our lower 3D pocket. So pop this aside. For this one, we will need our AA2 stabilizer, piece AA5, which is the bottom gusset, AA3, top gusset, two pieces here. So this is AA and AA1, the lining. In the interim, I've just added a stick-on logo. That's the word I'm looking for. So this is just one of those heat transfer ones. Two stabilizer pieces, AA4 and AA6, our zipper tape, and a zipper pull. So what I'll start by doing is just applying my stabilizer to the back of this panel, nice and centered. Press it down. Okay, so wrong sides together for this one. Now, very similar in construction to that top pocket, minus that front zipper. So if you think about it, we're not doing this step here where we're doing the front zipper, we're just doing around it. So clip. I'm not going to spend as much time talking about this one because you've already done it. And because you'll have the tutorial with you as well, if you need to, just go back a few steps and read over that one. Alright, back to the machine, base stitch all around this one with a nice long stitch length, then we'll come back. Okay, so there we go. I've base stitched it around this piece, so lining side and exterior. Just pop it aside for the moment. We are moving on with our AA3 piece. So we need some double-sided tape. Pop that down. Stick it down. Alright, pull the backing off. Grab your zipper tape. I've singed the edges and just apply it down on top of one end along the long edge, of course. Okay. Straighten it up. Back to the machine and stitch that with your 1/4 inch seam allowance. I've lost the ability to talk today. 1/4 inch seam allowance. So there's our zipper tape attached with our 1/4 inch seam allowance. So like our first top pocket, I'm going to flip this one over. I am now going to grab my double-sided tape, pop it along the line here. Peel off the backing and fold this top down to meet that line. Press to secure. You can also use your iron for this one if your fabric would allow it, but I just find that double-sided tape holds it nicely. Okay. Then we are going to add another line of double-sided tape along here. There we go. So what we want to do is fold this up. Oh, fingers aren't working today. I'm just going to give that a quick press just to make it easier to hold down. Just make sure if you do press it that your zipper tape will not melt. Handy tip. AA4 lining, just pop it right under there. Peel off our tape backing. And then, like our first one, we're going to fold it over to cover that stitching edge. So go along and do that. I'm hoping my head's not in the shot there. Fold that one over to cover the edge, not too far into the zipper tape. Okay, there we go. Press. Now turn it over. Take it back to your machine and do a top stitching line along there. Okay, there we go. So I've now top stitched along that edge. All I need to do is, I'll just trim that a little bit, is don't forget your zipper pull. No shame if you do, but just make sure that you try to remember it. It's a lot easier to do it now than unpick and do it later. Alright, zipper pull on. We are going to grab our AA 5-piece. So I'll do it this way. I go right side down, line up the zipper tape with the end there. Clip. Oop. So you want the material edge to be in line. Clip and clip. Fold this AA 5-piece over. Meet that end again and just manipulate it as you need, just to make sure that that's all level and in line. Clip. Take it back to your machine. You can base that if you want to first, otherwise it's a 3/8 of an inch or 1 centimeter seam allowance across there. Once you've done that, do the same for the other end. There we go. So I've sewn both ends with our 1 centimeter seam allowance. We're going to clip those corners, just the bottom corners with the fabric. Don't clip the zipper tape corners. That. Turn it right side out. Again, double check that you have put your zipper pull on. Just pull it just to make sure that it's sitting flat. We're going to grab our AA6 stabilizer. Insert it in here. Try and get it behind that seam. Be a little bit tricky, but that's okay. Take your time. As we all know, hand making things definitely isn't a time saver. There. Keep feeding it in, making sure that you're maintaining that gap up the top there for stitching. If you need to trim it a little bit, that's okay too. Oh, tiny, tiny, tiny. Yep, perfect. Right. So clippy clip. Back to the machine. Top stitch along the short edges and base stitch along that long edge there. I've attached my binding tape to the wrong side of my gusset, so now it's time to find our quarter points again. So same as last step. Just folding, making sure that you're finding the dead center. Do the same on the short sides. Okay. And come back and do it to this one. So line up that section. Use the ends of your gusset or your joins of your gusset to find that center. On the other side as well. Okay, line up those marks. And just manipulate it, fold it until you can find that center. Okay. Now that you've done that, same as the first one, get your clips. So zipper the top, right sides together, so zipper up the top, find your center markings and just clip that around. So just start off by finding the quarter markings first before you get too far. Clip those, and that'll give you a really good guide on how much space you have either side. But like Jazzy's patterns, look, I don't think I've ever seen a designer fit so beautifully with their gussets. It is always millimetre perfect, as long as your cutting is accurate, which mine really isn't, but we make it work. Okay, so quarter markings are clipped. Clip all the way around, and just like the first one, take it back to your machine. I always base first, 1/4 inch seam allowance, bind with your chosen method, and then we'll come back after that. Okay, here is our completed pocket. So bound and finished nicely. Let's turn it right way out so we can have a look. And there we go, just push those corners out. Beautiful. Okay, I'm really happy with that. Now we come to the bit where we are going to attach our pockets to our front panel. So grab your front panel. Now the pattern piece that we use, you cut out the shape, that way you know where to place it onto your front panel. And also I've just marked the quarter markings for top and bottom, just to help with placement more than anything. So trace it onto your front piece. I've just used some chalk to do so. Now this bit is where you really want to take your time. Your method of how you attach these pockets is completely your personal preference, whether you want to tape it, whether you want to double-sided tape it, or for me, I'm going to pin it because this is a cotton canvas, so I can. So let's start with the top one. You can start with the bottom one if you want, whatever you want to do. So it can be quite fiddly, I'm not going to lie, but I'm going to match up the quarter markings first. Take your time. There is no need to rush. You do not want to rush this because not only will you be frustrated, it won't line up perfectly, and you want it to be as straight as humanly possible. Look, it is handmade, so no one expects perfection, I don't think, but you still want to put in the effort to make it look nice. So top and bottom done. I might just undo that zipper tape just to make it easier to manipulate. Dependent on the stabilizer that you've used for your gussets, it can be a little bit tricky, but again, take your time. Sorry if I'm sniffling. I took the kidlets to a play centre yesterday, and we all know that they are usually cesspools of germs, so undoubtedly I'll get sick in the next couple of days. Right. Oopsies. Without stabbing yourself in the finger. Let me know in the comments, what's the worst sewing injury you've done? A couple of years ago, when I first, a few years ago now, when I first got my Benina, I managed to sew straight through my finger. Do not recommend. Okay, continue pinning, clipping, taping, however you're going to do it, around. Make sure it's nice and straight along the top and the bottom particularly, because that's going to be your focal points with this. So, pin, and then we'll take it to our machine to sew. I like to use my zipper foot for this one, that way I can get nice and close into this side bit. You want a 1/8 inch seam allowance, so it is quite small. Again, take your time. And I like to use my double stitch on my machine. I know not every machine has that, and that's fine, but I just like to really secure these pockets with this sort of method. So, pin clip, machine, 1/8 inch seam allowance, attach this front pocket. Then we'll come back and we're going to use the same method for this lower pocket too. Okay, there's our first pocket sewn on. As you saw, I didn't take my pins out quick enough and had a little bit of a pinch in one of the corners, but it's okay. We stop, we reset, and we keep going. So sewn on nicely, everything's lining up. It's on the reverse side. Okay, now onto that lower pocket. Same method, pin it, sew it, and then come back here. Okay, so here we are. I have now attached both of those front pockets. Now we do need to shape it, of course, but given that we're still assembling the bag, I am not worrying too much about squishing it and manipulating it yet, because it will get more squished up. So I'm really happy with the placement of those, nice and straight. Now all we need to do is sandwich some stabilizer between our front piece and this one here with the mesh pocket. So cut down, as I always do, just to keep it centered, because I use a domestic machine. I just have to be wary of the thicknesses, really. I don't want to push my machine too hard, so I try and keep my foam interfacing out of the seam allowance. You could do this with pins or just some double-sided tape. I've got to be careful of not catching that mesh pocket vinyl. So let's go one pin and hope for the best, eh? Sometimes I wonder what I'm doing. Alright, there. Okay, just feeling around, making sure it's all even. Feels good to me. Okay. Perfect. Alright. That on top. Take it back to your machine after you clip it and just baste around all sides there. And there we have it, our front panel attached to our lining there. Now our key leash, this was optional, but you need to decide now which side you want it attached to. Whether you want it on the front, so this is the bit that opens. Like Jazzy has suggested though, I think having it on the inside here is an option too. Look, I don't really know. What do you think? Let's just do it on. Okay, I'm going to do it here. And as she has also suggested, maybe just shortening it up a little bit. That way your keys can tuck inside that pocket. Oh, look, a couple of inches away from the edge is good. Let's go about there. Okay. All you need to do now is just baste across there and just cut off the excess if you are going to shorten that. Okay, now that we've finished with our exterior front panel, we can pop that one aside and we're going to move on with the zipper gusset that's going to join this outermost front panel to the interior one there. So just pop that aside and grab your pieces. So we have the ZB3 zipper. What else have we got? Our B and B1 pieces for our side panels. And our zipper gusset exterior, which is piece B3, lining B4, and oh, don't forget our B2, which is our stabilizer for that panel there. Now, it's also optional if you want to do that swivel hook B5, that attaches in there. Look, I'm not going to do it, but it is a very cute little addition for hanging things, key rings, etc. on there. So entirely up to you on that one. So let's go first with our zipper gusset. So as you can see, I've used the absolute salvage of my fabric here. I'm not going to put tape on this one. I'm just going to do it by feel. So what we want to do, right side down with our zipper tape onto this. I'm going to baste this first, especially because it's such a long piece. So baste this on with a very small seam allowance. Once you've done that, you're going to get your lining and pop it down, clip it, and then sew this all together with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, so right sides together. Once you've done that, come back. Okay, that's now done. So I started off with my base stitch, then moved into my stay stitch at a 1/4 inch. So just going to press it open. I did take off my zipper pull because I was a bit OCD about making sure my zipper pull was going the right way. So I shall figure that out in a second. For now, drag over my little ironing mat, which I just noticed I have bubbled my bench top, but that is okay, because that's pretty much where it's going to stay forever anyway, so I'm not too worried. Fun fact is I am married to a cabinet maker and builder, but I guess like the old adage about a tradie in his own house, this is a very cheap bought desk that we got, but it does the job, so waste not, want not. Okay, so that's the exterior pressed. We're going to do the interior, and I know that my iron is looking also not great lately, but it's only really used for sewing. We do have a nice one downstairs that sits in the cupboard unused most of the time. Okay, so press, press, press. Just making sure it's folded over evenly. There we go. Okay. Now we're going to take this back to the machine and just top stitch along this edge at a 1/8 inch seam allowance. So all the way along the length of that. Okay, that is now sewn. As you saw, I just base stitched the other side as well, just because I could, really. Now, I spoke too soon about removing the zipper pull because for my directional print it doesn't actually matter. So I'm going to put that back on. Here is when you will definitely need your zipper pull on, because we're about to seal up, what have I done there? About to seal up the edges of the zipper tape, and if you do not have your zipper pull in now, then you will need to unpick later, which I don't think any of us really like to do. I'm just going to trim the zipper tape a little bit there and there. So I just sent my husband a text message. He is currently downstairs asking to make me a coffee. Am I the only one that is that lazy that will message rather than go down the stairs? I don't know. Right, so now we need to do the sides of this one. So because this is just a fusible fleece, I normally would only use Sewfisticated stabilizers. However, I completely forgot to order them, to be honest, and I have none left. So before I get my next lot of fabric, I'm going to go through and figure out what stabilizers I need. But for now, let's do this. So we get our piece here, our exterior, right sides together with the exterior and clip. Get our lining, right sides together with the lining. Good. Okay, back to your machine. 1 centimeter seam allowance, sew that on. Once you've done that, we're going to do the other side with the 1 centimeter as well. So go do that and come back. Okay, that's now done. Just clipping the fabric corners only. Don't clip the end with the zipper tape. Same thing again. Turn it the right side out. There we go. We have one long loop. So we're going to get and top stitch these short ends here and just baste those long edges there just to seal it all up. Okay, there is our zipper gusset done, so that has been attached and top stitched. Coffee has been provided. Now we need to attach this to our front panel. This is where I deviate a little bit from the method and I pre-attach my binding, which I have cut and measured into a long loop. I'm going to apply this to the wrong side of the gusset on the zipper side, because the zipper side is the one that we're going to be attaching to our front panel. So if you're not going to use my method, which all good, I'm just going to go do that and then I'll come back and we'll keep going with the attachment of the zipper gusset to the front exterior. Okay, so for my method, my bias binding has been now attached and we're going to move on with attaching our zipper gusset to our front panel. So for the first step I'm going to do, if you've done your key leash on this panel, is I am going to pop it in there and I'm just going to put a pin through it because I do not want it flapping around and having the possibility of getting caught in our sewing. Okay, we need to mark halfway points. This is going to help us when we match up that zipper gusset. So just to do this, I match the center marks on my top and bottom and then just pull it tight. Little cut. Same on the other side. Line it up. Make sure it's level. Cut. There we go. And same for this. So to do this one, I'm matching up the sides there. I'll do it on both sides because why not? There, there. And on the zipper side, just a little tiny one in the zipper. And on the other side. Okay. So keeping in mind that we are attaching the zipper side to this front panel and we want our exterior panel attaching to the side. Now you can choose whether you want it hinged on the left or right. I'm right-handed, so I'm hinging it on this side. Up to you, really. No rules on that one. So all you're going to do is find the halfway point of your exterior, find the halfway point of your front panel, match it up, just secure it down. I'd like to just secure it down to where, just on the fabric before I get to the zipper. I say like to, again, this is the first time I've done this pattern, the add-on, so I don't know why I'm talking like an expert about that one, but I am. Okay, then we go to the other side, find our halfway point there, match it with our halfway point on our front panel, clip it, and then clip around join this gusset all the way around. Just move it if you need to. As long as this side panel is center, this zipper tape, move it, manipulate it as much as you need to just to make it fit nicely around it. So go around and clip. I'm going to sit over there in my comfy chair with my coffee and clip this. Once you've clipped it evenly, if you need to snip into the fabric just to get it around those tighter corners, do so. Just make sure the snips are really, really small. Once you've done that, baste it and we'll come back. Okay, so there is my front panel with my zipper gusset based on at the moment. Basted? Yeah. So this is where, like I said, I deviate from the written instructions. This is where you could add your bias tape and do it that way. I've already pre-attached it. Because I have just basted it, I'm going to go back to my machine and do my proper 2.5mm length stitch all the way around. Then I will proceed to fold over my bias binding as per the front pocket method and finish off this front panel, ready to attach it to the other panels. Okay, there we have it. So I have now attached my gusset to the front panel. I have also done my method of using the binding tape already. So as you can see, nice and neat. It's done really good. I'm just going to keep that pinned just in case, because knowing my luck, it'll start flapping around. So what we're going to do now, I'm just going to open it out so you can see, because it always looks nicer when you have pushed out those corners. Look at that. That is very exciting. So we need to attach this to our other interior front panel. So what we're going to do is lay it out as you're going to open it. So you imagine this is the front of the bag. When you unzip your zips, so you want this zipper tape staying attached to this portion. What we need to do then is find the centers of the long sides. So same thing as I did before. I'm just going to clip that. Find the center. This last thing we want is for our panels to be lopsided. That would make me sad. Alright. Find our strong clips, which is attached to 100 things over there. So again, just make sure that you lay it out as you want it to be opened. So that way. We're going to take our side exterior first. So wrong side or lining side down to right side of lining. Clip, clip, and clip. Go around to the other side, wrong side, clip, and clip. Okay, so from here, you're going to clip around, make sure it's fitting nice, and then just go and baste that. You don't want to do a stay stitch or bind it at this stage, just basting around here, making sure it's nice and even so it all sits nicely. And there we have it. So our front panel is now basted to our interior front panel. And honestly, be very proud of yourself, because this was not a quick or easy task, but it will be well worth it. So this finishes the portion of the add-on to the Scholars Pack pattern. From this point, we revert back to the original instructions for the Scholars Pack. But for now, it is 5 o'clock at night. I am going to go have a nice warm shower, watch a movie with my kids, and I will come back tonight and begin on the original part of the Scholars Pack. All right, be back soon. Okay, we are back for another session. So kids are asleep, so now seems like a good time to keep going with this bag. So we have finished with our add-on pack instructions, and we've now gone back to the original Scholars Pack instructions at step number 24, which is to apply our stabilizer to our base piece. So I'm using a vinyl or synthetic leather. I'm using Decaville Heavy. So I've gone ahead and fused that to my base piece. Now, obviously, if yours isn't a heat transferred stabilizer, so if it doesn't have that fusible side, you're not going to try and fuse it with heat. If you're using a sew-in stabilizer, follow the instructions and actually sew it in place. Because I don't need to do that, I'm going to skip that step, to be honest. What we can now do, if you want to use purse feet, which I personally like, I think it just adds that little bit of extra. And plus, when you've got your bag sitting on the ground, just gives it that layer of protection underneath. So what we're going to do is find our center points. So just being careful if you've recently fused that to your base. So center point, and same on that side. These center point markings, much like our add-on pack when I was marking all our panels, they are very handy for later. Alright, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, I'm back, sorry. Interrupted by a child. So I have these domed purse feet. I just want to actually give one a go before I made promises I couldn't keep. And it worked very, very well. I believe I got these from Jez from Musen a while ago. The only alteration I'm making is I only have an 8mm rivet die set. She supplied 9mm rivets, which is no biggie. So they're actually really easy to use. They just pop on. As long as your rivet side goes down, you just set it with your normal die set. So I'll just quickly do that. And yeah, there you go. So they stay on and they will not come off. So really cool. I'm going to go do my other 3. Like I said, you don't have to do purse feet, or you can use your standard ones with the prongs or the screw-in ones. Look, whatever you want to do is great. Okay, there we go. So they worked out really, really nicely. So there's our 5, I can count, 5 bag feet on our base. Set that aside just for the moment, we'll come back to that. Next, we're going to work on the side panel pocket. So we're going to start off with our 2 E3 pieces. This is where our elastic is going to go through for the side pocket. So on the short ends, flip it over, we're going to draw lines 3/4 of an, oh, for a pen that would work. That's my pokey pen, isn't it? I always forget that. 3/4 of an inch up each end. Same here. Now I'm using vinyl for these ones. Of course, use whatever you want to, whatever your machine can handle. Double-sided tape along each side. Then you're going to peel the backing off the double-sided tape, fold the short end down to meet the line, and top stitch with the quarter inch seam allowance on both ends. Do that same for both of those. Okay, so I top stitched the edges and then I folded them in half and just base stitched those together. That's going to create the casing for our elastic. I'm just going to fold and snip to mark the halfway point, and same on the other one. There we go. So I've used vinyl. Just use whatever you feel that your machine can handle. Don't use anything too thick, otherwise you might struggle with that one. Okay, we also need to grab our side pockets now. So these are, what are they? These are pieces number E1 and the lining as well. I'm deciding which way up. Let's go this way up. So with the exterior of your side pockets, mark the center again. I've done this one. You'll see why in a second. So we got the center on our long edge. Grab our clips. We are going to place our elastic casing lining up the center points there. And clip. And then do the same to the other one. I'm just making sure that it's all even, so it should be. Clip. Now up to you whether you base these together first. I'm feeling brave, so I am going to go for gold. I'm going to grab my side pocket lining. I'm just using the 420D hex for this one because it is waterproof and these are for water bottles. So just in case, that extra layer of protection. Right sides together with the exterior. Clip them together. All right. Yes, I am wearing my dressing gown. It's about 9 o'clock at night here. And you know what? Any time is a good time to wear pajamas, really. I always get changed when I wake up, of course, but at night there is nothing better than hopping into some comfortable pajamas. Okay. So we're going to clip these. Both of these, we're going to sew across the top with our 1/4 inch seam allowance. I do a couple of extra back stitches over the edges of those elastic tabs just to make sure they're secure. Okay, once you've done that, come back. So I have now stitched both of my pockets at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm just going to snip those corners to reduce bulk. Then we are going to turn this right side out. If you can press it, do. I'm going to press mine. I'll just be careful of that vinyl, of course. Then once you've done that, we're going to take it back to our machine. We're going to top stitch along this top edge with the slightly longer stitch length, and then the remaining 3 sides, do a nice basting stitch just to hold it in place. It makes it a lot easier for the next step. So do the same with both. Okay, here are my top stitch side pockets. So top stitched along the top there and just base stitched at the sides. Now, what we need to do is create our pleats. So how we do this, I just turn it wrong side up or lining side up. I fold this down and I want to make sure it's nice and even, not on an angle. So fold it down, I take it over to my iron. I be careful not to touch my vinyl with the iron, and I give it a good press. Now obviously this is only for fabrics that you can apply heat to. If not, just clip, that's fine. But because I can press them, I will. So same on that one. So it creates a fold. I will still clip it when I get to sewing. What we want to do, take it to your machine and you're going to sew along these edges with just an 1/8 inch seam allowance, very, very small. I like to back stitch a few times up the top just to really make sure that it's being held properly. So do the same for both, this one as well. Press the creases in, stitch, and then come back. Okay, so we've stitched down the sides on both of those, creating our pleat. Next, we're going to need our side panels. So I've gone for a vinyl for this one. Again, whatever your choice is. Grab your clips, line up one side along here, clip, and just clip all the way up. Now we're just going to be basting the sides first before we worry about the bottom, because we need to fold the bottom so it fits, but we can only do that once we have sewn the sides. So clip both. Clip. Same with the other one. And again. Okay. Over to the machine. So basting down both sides of both pockets. So just baste and then come back. So we've now basted those sides of those side pockets down. We need to secure the bottom. So you can see how it is sitting up. What we want to do is press down the bottom, so pushing on those creases, on those pleats, even it out both sides so you've got equal spacing, and just clip it there. So pop a couple of clips just to make sure that those creases don't move. Do the same for the other one. It's good to use your worktop to do this, so that way you can really make sure that they're even. Okay. Baste along both of those, and if you can, just give this a press if your fabric allows for it. It'll just help sit it a bit nicer. Okay, so I've secured along bottom of those with the basting stitch. So you're now secured all three sides. You can see our drink bottle pockets really taking shape. Now we need our elastic for this channel. I didn't really have quite the blue that I wanted, so I'm going with a royal blue. You can use a safety pin for this one, or just feed it through manually. I have one of these thingies. You have to tell me what it's called, bobkin maybe? I don't know. Either way, feed it through the channel. This just makes it easier, especially if you're using vinyl. Or give yourself plenty of purchase either side. Cut it off. What you want to do, take it to the machine again, and you're going to stitch it both sides. Try and just have it so that the pocket's laying reasonably flat. Try not to pull it too tight because you will distort that side panel. So just push it down, just have it so it's got a little bit of room to move. Do this for both pockets. Okay, there we go. Our elastic has been secured both sides. Just neaten it up if you have some overhang. Always good to just have a little bit of overhang in case you've underestimated how much elastic you have either side. Okay, we are now going to attach our side panels to our base. So retrieve your base, right sides together. Please make sure that you're attaching the bottom of your side pocket. I speak from experience. I've attached the top quite a number of times, so double check the bottom of your pocket. Short sides together, clip along there, and do the same for the other side. Bottom pocket to base. It's always when I'm running on autopilot, and I think I'm very clever doing something that it takes me 5 times longer because I've stuffed up and I have to unpick it. Okay, back to the machine, sewing each end with a 1 centimetre seam allowance. Because I'm using vinyl for my base, I'm going to do 1 line of stitching at 1 centimetre and then 1 slightly next to it, just so that it doesn't pull the stitches in the vinyl. There we go. So this has now been sewn either end at that 1 centimetre seam allowance. I'm just going to clip those corners to reduce bulk. especially handy when we come to sewing our base to our gusset base to our panels. Okay, we're going to open it out. We're going to top stitch each short end, pressing the seam allowance towards the base. So top stitching through the base on both sides. Okay, so we've finished the bottom gusset here. We've top stitched at both ends, so it's looking really good. We're just going to pop this one aside and keep going with the top of the gusset. So for the next portion of this work, we need our 2 pieces of G1, or G, sorry, G1 in the middle, our grab handle, our foam for the grab handle, our G4 lining piece, our exterior GG piece, GG1, which is the lining to that piece, and our interfacing pieces. So I have run out in the meantime, so I've just gotten 2 offcuts of Jazzy's Sewfisticated foam. I have real trouble saying that, especially this time of night, and I've just joined it together with some interfacing. Okay, let's get to it. Double-sided tape, pop it along that line, and I'm just also going to put a little bit at the other end. You'll see why in a second. Press it down. Okay, peel the backing off that, fold it over. Now, because I'm using a vinyl, I won't be able to pin this, so I might just go a little bit off course with the instructions, and I'm going to add a line, another line of double-sided tape, just so when I do stick it down, it's going to hold it for me. Okay, now this other side, peel off the tape backing if you used it, grab your foam, center it, and pop it right along the edge there. So centered at the end, equal space either side. I'm going to pre-take this paper off. We are going to fold, starting from the foam end, fold it over nice and tight. So right against where the edge of the foam is. And I like to keep rolling. I just find it easier to do it that way. So we're trying to encapsulate that foam within the handle. It just makes it for a nice feeling grab handle. Okay, I probably went a little bit too tight actually. So this folded edge, we want over halfway. Okay, that's important because when we do our center line of stitching, we need to make sure that we're catching that edge. Clip along there. Okay. Take it back over to your machine and sew dead down the center. So as a measurement for your seam allowance, my handle is measuring bang on 1 inch, so a 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way along. Because you're sewing through the foam, you might need to increase your stitch tension and increase your stitch length to your normal top stitching amount. Okay, so now I've top stitched that handle down there, and you can see it, that foam really adds a nice structure to that handle, and I've made sure when I stitch that I've just caught the edges of that fold. Now we're going to take our G1 piece. Along the short ends, I want you to just mark the center, however you choose to do that. I'm just going to do a tiny little cut. Now, you want to have a 1 centimeter overhang of your handle. That's for later when we do top stitching and an optional rivet. So about a 1 centimeter overhang. Make sure this is centered to the G1 piece. Clip. Now, go and base this first. Don't try and do both sides at the same time because it does get a bit tricky. So base that end. Once you've done that, do the same thing to the opposite end. Okay, that is now basted. So you can see that foam does really add a nice shape to that. It's just nice and squishy and nice to feel. So now we're going to join this to our G1 pieces. I feel like I got the names mixed up. Okay, you get what I mean. All right, so we need to pick which end we're going to do. We'll try and feature the butterfly, or the dragonfly. Right sides together, short sides clip. Do the same for both ends. So other side goes on the other end. Take it to your machine and sew with a 1 centimeter seam allowance. Once you've done that, you're going to clip the corners to reduce bulk, turn it right side out, and then top stitch the seam allowance down onto this piece here. Do the same for both sides. Okay, there we go. So I've attached the handle, the G piece, the G1 pieces, top stitched them, and I've also applied a rivet either side, being sure to catch the handle. This isn't necessary. It just gives it a little bit more of structural integrity. Just make sure you do catch the edges of that handle overhang. So I've done my rivets about maybe just a smidge less than a centimetre from that line there. Now just pop this aside for the moment. We will be coming back to that very, very quickly. So we are going to move on to our GG piece. This is our exterior piece. What I want to do is grab my zipper tape, cut a length just beyond it, singe the edges so that they do not burn. Now your choice if you want to put your zipper pulls on now or later. Either way, don't forget. I'm going to add mine after I do this. So I want to get my zipper tape. Now you can glue. You can stick this with double-sided tape down. I'm just going to clip it. I like to baste this zipper tape first. Once I've done that, I will grab my GG1 lining piece and put that right side facing down, and then do a proper stay stitch, a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So if you want to, baste it first and then 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, here's our GG and GG1 pieces. I first basted my exterior and then I've gone and done my stay stitch with that 1/4 inch seam allowance. We are going to turn it right sides out. Now if you can press your fabric then do so. If not, finger press is fine. I like to press my fabric where I can. I don't know, maybe it's kicked back to more my clothes making background. I just like to make sure that those seams are nice and crisp. We've worked hard at keeping a nice even seam allowance, so it's a shame if our folding isn't up to scratch when it comes to this stuff. So press, press, press. Mainly the exterior. I find the lining tends to behave, but the good thing about this hex fabric is that you can press it. There is no worry. As long as the heat isn't too high, don't go nuts. That being said, I did just manage to melt some fabric earlier tonight because my dear husband used my iron. I think he left it on scorch the earth temperature. So, anywho, we're going to top stitch along this line here. Okay, so once you've done that, you're going to grab your GG2 stabilizer. So I like to top stitch first, then you're going to insert that nice and close to where your top stitching line is, and then just baste around the 3 sides just to hold that stabilizer in place. Okay, we are back. We have finished our GG and GG1 side. Now we are going to move on to attaching the other side of our upper gusset. Now, just to make sure that I have it centered, so I'm going to mark the center of my zipper tape. Now, what is also a good time is to mark the center of your gusset, because we will need to do this later again when we're attaching this to our panels. Same with this side. Just make sure that when you make a little cut that it is well within the seam allowance. Just the tiniest little one is fine. Okay, there we go. So now I will be using double-sided tape for this, just to make sure that it really stays where it should. Will I have enough? That is the question. Whoopsies. Not if I do that, no. Okay, there we go. I still haven't put in my zipper pulls yet. I will after this step. Okay, press it down. Now I'm using non-directional fabric for this one, but if you are using directional fabric, you'll want to make sure that you're applying this in whichever way that you want to. So all I'm going to do is right sides together. It can be a little bit tricky with the handle because it has that foam in it. It sort of bulges up a bit. Just take your time with it. Again, handmade is not a rush, not a race. I like to press the ends, I'll push the ends down. Do you still clip when you use double-sided tape? I do. Maybe I don't have enough faith in the double-sided tape I use, I'm not sure. Okay, then go along and just even that out. I've gotten a bit sticky with my double-sided tape. Yep, just press it down, work your way along, making sure it's sticking nice and evenly, and just clip along. Okay, so once you've done that, we are going to, firstly, again, making sure it's all nice. Look, if you're bad at measuring like me, this is where those new cut and sew panels are brilliant, because it leaves nothing to question. But also, look, a couple of mil here or there is not the end of the world. It is not going to make that much of a difference either way, and there's always just that little bit of wiggle room with any pattern, I think, and if there isn't, well, maybe it's not the right pattern. Okay. I need to go through my clips and figure out which ones I hate and which ones I love. Alright, same thing, a little bit extra, but that's okay. Alright, once we've done that, once you've clipped along there to your satisfaction, lining side, right sides together, and we're going to sew that with that 1/4 inch seam allowance again. So here we are, we've attached the other side of our gussets, the one with the handle and the lining, to the other side with our 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now we can just open it up. Press it if you can, so same thing, I can just portions of. I'm going to be very careful when I get near my vinyl handle. The last thing I want to do is melt that right now. That would give me a very much sad face. Okay. And I would be absolutely lying if I said I hadn't melted vinyl numerous occasions. Too many to count now. I just get brain farts sometimes, or my beautiful little kids come and annoy me right at the wrong moment. Okay. Like the other side, we're going to take that back to the machine. We're going to top stitch along here. We're then going to get our stabilizer, pop it in, and then baste around the sides. Once you've done that, we can come back and we can attach this to our bottom gusset. Okay, so there we are. I have attached this. I've sewn in the stabilizer as well. Nice and neat. I do love that hex finish. It's that shine. It just adds something to it. Now, before we get further, zipper pulls. Go get them. Don't put it off. Don't distract yourself. Just go do them now. So one each end. Let's hope for a seamless zipper installation. Spoke too soon. Oh my goodness. There. Other end, other zipper. Okay, there we go. So our zipper pulls are now on, and we need to grab our bottom gusset in preparation for attaching to the sides here. Okay, we are back again. So it is Sunday night here. Spent the weekend with the kids, which is lovely, but now we're back to do a little bit more on this scholars pack. So we're now going to connect the top gusset to the base gusset. Make sure that your zipper pulls are on. I know I said in the last video to do that. Just checking. Don't want to nag. Okay, our exterior piece face down, right sides together with our exterior upper, and just clip together. Now, I don't think I'm feeling very brave tonight, so I'm going to base these together first, and I can turn and clip this piece together as well. As you can see, the upper gusset is shorter than that lower side gusset, obviously on purpose. Okay. I'm going to clip these together, and then I'm going to baste them, and I'll come straight back. So I've basted these two sides. Now we're going to get our lining. So what piece did we decide that was? I had the piece name and now I cannot remember for the life of me. F3. Cool. So right side of the lining, right side down, and facing the right side of our upper gusset lining. So clipping along here, I just like to baste the exterior first just to make sure that it's spot on really, because we do want this all to line up nicely. Okay, so that side clipped. Do the same for the other side. Line it up. Okay. Back over to the machine. Now instead of basting it this time, we are going to do our 1 centimetre seam allowance on both ends. So 1 centimetre seam allowance. Because I'm partially using vinyl, I'm going to do a second line of reinforcing stitching just next to the other one inside the seam allowance. So there we have it. I have stitched both those sides with that 1 centimetre seam allowance and just put a reinforcing stitch line inside. Now I'm going to get my scissors and just clip those corners. This will help vastly to reduce bulk, especially because I'm using vinyl and use a domestic machine. Sometimes those joins can get quite bulky. All right. Okay. We're going to turn everything right side out. So just flip that lining piece around. And there we have it. So here is our main gusset. Looking good, everything lines up. What we want to do, just making sure that you give everything just a gentle tug just so it sits nicely. We'll take this back to the machine and we're going to do a line of top stitching, both sides along this line here with an 1/8 inch seam allowance into this side panel piece. So go do that and then we'll move on to the next part. Okay, so there we go. I've top stitched the edge on each side of our base, and I've also just gone ahead and done a quick base stitch all the way along here. It's just going to make it easier for me to put in my stabilizer for this base piece. Now that's not necessary at all. I just found it easier. So next we're going to need our piece F4, which is our side gusset stabilizer. Much like the top gusset, I've run out of stabilizer, so I've just used some interfacing to join two pieces together, and it is just as strong as the rest. So waste not, what not. We're going to pop that in. See what I mean? If I base that other side, theoretically, I should just be able to pop this in. Might need to trim it ever so slightly. I have a really bad habit of just cutting my stabilizers just a smidge too big. But I guess you're better off putting it in, having it too big than too small. So try and get it right up to that top seam there. Right. We're going to clip along here. Feeding it in, making sure your seam allowance, as in the space between the edge of your fabric and the stabilizer, is equal by pushing it down. Look at that, I didn't cut it too big this time. It's always a first for everything. Oh no, I spoke too soon. Spoke way too soon. Slap on the wrist for me. There we go. Alright. So feed it in, manipulate it as you will and as you need to get it to all fit. Beautiful. Okay. Once you have done that and you're happy with how it's all sitting, you're going to take that back to the machine and base stitch that closed. If you haven't done the other long edge, also base stitch that shut. And then we are done with our main gusset, which is getting very exciting. Okay, so go and base stitch that with a nice long stitch length. Okay, there we have it. So I have now basted all sides, it's stabilizer inside, and we can put this aside. Now we're going to get onto our back panel. So we need our two 13cm lengths of seatbelt webbing. I'm using a, is it polyester? The melty one. I'm just going to say the melty one. And as such, I can use a lighter to seal the edges so it doesn't unravel. There we go. Now I'm also got my ladder lock buckles. I'm just using some nice silver ones. A lot of the time they are plastic, and I know Jazzy has sourced some really nice ones as well. But I'm just going to use these ones because I like them. So, the right side, it's really hard to tell. The right side's smooth, the wrong side, back side, has an indentation. So we're going to get a seatbelt webbing from the back, up through the first hole, down through the second, and just pull it through slightly. Same thing. Up through the first hole, down through the second, and pull it through. Now I'm just going to get some double-sided tape. That was probably a bit of a pathetic amount of double-sided tape, to be honest. Can be a bit more generous next time. Alright, there's no exact measurement for this part. Just make sure it's roughly equal-ish. So take one end, press it down, take the top side and press it down so the edges, the ends of the webbing are hidden, and I just grab a clip just to hold it in place. Do the same for this one. Up from the bottom, press, top half down, and press. We will be stitching these down, so as long as you got a bit of purchase on the back there, you'll be fine. Okay, so just set those aside for now. Now we're moving on with our backpack straps. So we have our external pieces here. I am not doing the extended or the chest strap in this version today. Like I said, the instructions are very, very clear, but I just prefer to do just the regular straps. So that's what I'm going to be sticking to today. So what you're going to need for this one is your pieces H, which are your backpack straps. So that's going to be my external or seam side, and for my lining as well. You're also going to need your foam stabilizer, which is H1. I have a what we call Smackdown foam here in Australia. This one's from Sunkiss in Melbourne. I'm just going to use that because, again, that's what I have. So, slight deviation from the instructions. I can attach this now rather than putting it in later. So So just make sure that you have enough space either side. My only bugbear with the smackdown foam is that I find it really gums up the needle, and then I get skip stitches, which just really is infuriating. So I've got to be really wary of making sure that it is outside of the seam allowance. So just make sure it's center, press down. Now if you are using a sew-in stabilizer, that can get inserted later, so don't worry about this step here. Okay, right side's up. I'm going to grab my clips. So we're going to get our lining pieces, and with these ones we're going right side down, so we're going right sides together, clip it around, just making sure that the ends match up nicely. Now a really good backing for this one, for that extra squishiness, is the 3D air mesh. Did I say air mesh? Air mesh that Jazzy has. That paired with a foam stabilizer inside just makes a really nice feeling backpack strap, especially for kids, you know, if they're carrying it around a lot. You want it to be nice and soft on their back until they come and dump it in your arms. All right. So just clip it for now, then I shall explain in a second how we're going to do this. Now, silly me, I used to always just sew all the way around and turn through the top, until I actually read the instructions and realised that there is a much easier way. So along the longest edge, I'm just going to make a mark. So a few inches from the top and then about 6 inches down. Same on the other side, a few inches from the top and about 6 inches down. You don't have to be too specific. Those are very generous 6 inches, I know. No dirty jokes here, I promise. What we're going to do is leave that 6-inch gap open as our turning hole. So what you want to do with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, stitch that top part, leave that 6-inch gap alone, then come and sew all the way around the rest of it, so keeping that space open. And then the same on the other side. So go and do that 1/4 inch seam allowance for that one. Okay, there we have it. So I've sewn around the strap, kept those open. So next step is just to get our pinking shears, or you could cut notches. Now just being careful, just about halve the seam allowance on the curved ends. This just helps when you turn it out to make a nice smooth finish. Don't cut too deep towards the stitches because you might cut them and then we're in a little bit of bother. Okay, so like I said, I've used this smackdown foam. Wish me luck, we're going to turn it inside out. So gentle, don't get too excited because you don't want to rip those stitches. And if you rip those stitches, then you've got to turn it back out and do it again. All right, let's fast forward this process and you can watch me turn these inside. So there we go. Our straps are now turned right side out. I've pressed them a little bit, and what I've also tried to do is just press that seam allowance under just to help make it a nice neat finish. So grab your clips if you want. I mean, you don't have to clip it if you don't want to. I just like to make sure that it stays nice and flat and that the lining or underside of it is underneath and doesn't roll forward. So I'm going to clip around. Doesn't have to be a lot of clips, it's just to hold it. Make sure that when you turn it out, as you probably saw in a video, I just use the end of a pen to push out that nice curve. Use whatever turning implement you have at your disposal. A lot of the time it's a chopstick, which is great. Mine has disappeared into probably one of the kids' bedrooms, to be honest. Even though it's a chopstick and there's plenty in the kitchen, it's especially exciting when it comes from Mum's sewing room, I think. Okay, so we're going to clip it, making time especially to clip that opening well, because when we're top stitching we want to make sure that we catch that all properly. Okay, now we've clipped it. Do the same for the other one. Then we're going to take it back to our machine and do a 1/8 inch seam allowance top stitch around the whole thing. So do that for both of those straps. Okay, there we have it. Our backpack straps top stitched and they're looking really good. So now what we need to do is attach those buckles that we did earlier. So grab a ruler, or a, what are you calling this? Quilting ruler? 2 inches up from the bottom. Trying to sort of follow the angle of the strap when you do this. Grab some double-sided tape again. We're going to stick it to the back side of this one, so over the join in that webbing, or where those straps, the end of the webbing meets. Okay. Now before I stick it on, I'm just going to mark 1 1/4 inches up, because this is going to give us a guide as to where to sew our X box. If you haven't done one of those before, you sew a rectangle and then sew an X through it, going back and forth as you need to make that X. So take that paper backing off, center it, press down. Same for the other side. Press down. So using that 1 1/4 inch marking as a guide, sew your rectangle with an X in the middle to reinforce that. So hop on over and do that and we'll come back. Okay, so there we have it. I've attached these parts of the webbing with that X box, as you may be able to see from the camera angle. Okay, we're going to proceed with the next part of the back panel. So just pop these aside for now. We're going to be coming back to those really shortly. What you're going to need for the back panel is your back panel exterior, piece D, your D1 back panel lining. I've gone for a different colour for my laptop pocket. Your D2 foam stabiliser. If you're not using air mesh, I'd recommend using that premium foam, the 4mm, just to give it a bit more cushion on that one. You are going to need your 2 D3 zipper pocket linings, your ZD dipper, oh my goodness, ZD zipper, and a pull for that one, of course. What else are we going to need? D4, strap backing, so I've gone that same vinyl as the others. Seat belt webbing. So look, I'm not going to do the luggage sleeve, so look, up to you, but I'm going to need my 2 lengths of 45cm webbing, which right now I am going to just singe those edges nicely because we don't want them to unravel. Now for the bag hook, which if you have cut the material, that is piece D5. I'm using the same length in seatbelt webbing. I just wanted the contrast really. No other reason. You can do that out of fabric. And then I'm going to use that binding tape just to back onto that, just to give it that little bit more strength and in case that webbing wants to pull. So I'll just cut that off. So I'll be attaching that soon. What else do we need? Our 2 D6 strap connectors and our DD and DD1 laptop gusset. You will need the zipper that goes along with that. Wow, that seems like a lot, doesn't it? No stress, we're all good. So let's just move that aside for now. we're going to start with our strap connector tabs. So our 2 pieces of D6 and our 2 45cm lengths of webbing. So take your long sides, fold them over. I just find this is the easiest way to do it. I'm just going to clip that corner. I'm going to grab my seatbelt webbing, insert it up in there, pushing it right against the fold, and have about 1 centimetre coming out the top. That's quite important for just that reinforcement. Alright, clip, clip, just to hold it, make sure it's straight. Do the same thing, fold, clip across, insert, make sure we've got about 1 centimetre overhang, clip that. Okay, so now we've done that, we're going to take that over to the machine. So look, the more you can clip the better, and then we want to sew this with a 1/4 inch seam allowance across the top there, the end of where the webbing is. So go do that and then we'll come back. So there we have our sewn strap connectors. You would see that I just did a couple of reinforcing stitches back and forth. It doesn't have to be neat at all. Now we're just going to clip the corners of the end that we've sewn. Just be careful not to cut the webbing and not to cut beyond the seam allowance there. Then we're going to turn it out. Don't trim that webbing. We want to keep it in there. Gently pull on that strap. Same with the other side. Turn it out. Give it a gentle pull. If you find that your corner hasn't turned out quite as well as you want, just get something pokey, get it in there. Okay, so what we're going to do now is just manipulate it a little bit. If you can press this, do. I can't because I'm using vinyl for this one. I'm just going to clip it though to make sure my layers are lining up nicely, and then I'm going to take it back to my machine. Now we're going to top stitch it. So top stitch all 3 sides, and then I'm going to come back and do one at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So again, top stitch at an 1/8 inch, and then top stitch again at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, just to allow a little bit more reinforcement. Do that for both of those. Okay, there we go. There's our strap connector tabs. So I've just done my 2 rows of top stitching on the seam sides. Just pop those aside for now. We're going to move on with our bag hook. Now, if you're using the fabric version as per the instructions, you're going to fold the long sides in, fold again to enclose the raw seams. I'm using some webbing and just some of that bias binding, just for a bit of colour and strength. All I'm going to do is just top stitch around there. So I'm just going to do that and come back and we'll discuss the zipper pocket. Okay, there we are. So I just top stitched around all 4 sides. You can do something similar if you'd like to, or just use the fabric version. So popping that aside as well, we're going to move on with our zipper pocket. So for this one, we need our D3 zipper linings and our exterior piece here. So what I'm going to do is find out how far back down we need. Okay. Folding in half, we're going to find the center again of our lining. Not our lining, of our panel. There we go. I'm just going to mark and find our center first. This is to help line up our zipper pocket, and 4 inches down is our marking that we need for our zipper pocket placement. There. Then we're going to get our zipper pocket on, if you have a right or wrong side, on the wrong side for this one. Make a mark 3/4 of an inch from the top long edge. Another mark down, so 1/2 inch down, or ever so slightly less. Then we're going to get, I'm going to get a smaller ruler, 1 inch in from the sides. So we have our square there, or rectangle. I'm just going to find the center of this. Okay, get some pins, align it with that line and centering with our center line, and just pin it there. Okay, so much like our interior pocket, we're going to take it back to our machine and sew along those long lines, and then I'll just quickly draw it in. We're going to cut a V at each end, so cut along there, cut the line, cut along there as well, being careful not to cut through those stitches. So there we have our zipper box sewn up. I have cut open, pressed down nicely, and because I'm using a cotton canvas, that's nice and easy. So we need to get our zipper. We're going to singe the ends, same on that one. We are also going to attach our zipper pull, very integral part of a zipper pocket, I'd say. Pop that on. Okay, I'm going to have my zipper pull closing to the left, getting my double-sided tape. Okay, press it down. Take the backing off. Okay, there we go. Take your back panel and centering it over that zipper tape. Try and maintain a nice even allowance or opening on both sides of that zipper. And just make sure that your zipper isn't wavy. So not that you want to stretch your zipper tape, but just make sure that it's laying down flat and not bunching up. Press that down. Okay. Alright. There we go. Back to your machine. We're going to top stitch that down, just a slightly longer stitch length around all 4 sides, just like our internal zipper. So our zipper is now sewn, and from the other side we're going to get our lining, our other D3 lining piece. Pop it on here. Grab your clips. Now again, because it is a bound bag, we don't need to worry about leaving an opening in our zipper pockets for turning. Okay, so back to the machine. Sew all 4 sides, just manipulating this panel as you need to access those edges. Okay, so there we have it. Our zipper pocket is now finished. We're going to move on with attaching our backpack straps. So if you're using seatbelt webbing for your strap backing D4 piece, just bear with me for a minute. You won't need to do this particular part of it. So we're going to get our ruler. Along the 3/4 line, some tape. Oh, how good was that? That was the last of that bit of tape. Clips. Peel off your backing. Press that long edge down to meet that line. I'm going to use clips. And again, if you're not using vinyl and you are using a material that you can press, then do so, because I am not. I need to do this. What I might do though, see, I just may have figured out something that makes me slightly clever tonight, yet to be seen. Okay, I'm just gonna take the clips off that I've just put on. I will reapply in a second. I'm gonna grab some other double-sided tape that hasn't run out, and I'm just going to stick it down over that line, over the edge of that vinyl. That's just going to hold it in place, and it's going to help me later because I won't be able to pin through the vinyl. All right, there we are. So just pop that aside just for the moment. So what we need to do is make a line down from the top of our panel 2 3/8 of an inch. So just line it up. There we go. So 2 3/8 of an inch down. Grab your strap backing. We are going to line this up to the underside of this line. So make sure there's 2 3/8 of an inch gap. You are going to, for me, clip it, and I'll just hold it in place as I sew. You could also, which we might actually do, double-sided tape that down. That would make sense. Let me grab out some new double-sided tape. See, thinking on our feet. Look at us go. Just put the line down there. This looks thinner, doesn't it? Excellent. I was hoping for some thinner stuff. Okay. Pop that back down, stick it down, making sure you got equal space either side. Alright, you're going to sew this with a 1 centimetre seam allowance. That's why I've drawn in that line at that 1 centimetre. So go and sew this in before we proceed with the next step. Okay, so I have sewn that now with that 3/8 of an inch seam allowance just down there. Next, I'm just going to make a more obvious mark for our centre. So just following that line. Get your strap hook, and if you want to use tape, great. If not, great. So just a little line just above that line you sewn. So line of tape there. Stick that down. I probably got a bit excited about how big I've done it. So the side that you want to be seen goes up, line it up there, press, press, press. Now I can probably pin this, and then we're going to bend and fold it down. So watch how I do it. I just sort of turn it around and pop it down there, because you want that loop facing forward. You don't want to try and twist it around on itself too much or turn it upside down or anything like that. That way I can see the blue from this side, and on the underside is my green. Just baste along that line. That's all you need to do for now, just a basting stitch just to hold that in place. Okay, so our bag hook is now basted in place. Now becomes quite exciting. So we get to attach our bag straps. So you want to put these on, just lay them out as they'll go on with our straps curving outwards. Okay, so make sure they're curving outwards. Just leave them there for now. We need to determine how far apart you want these backpack straps. The wider apart they are, they suit a larger person. So if you want to suit a younger child, then you can make them a little bit further, a little bit closer together. I'm planning that this backpack is going to be for an adult. So we want an adult anywhere from 2 to 3 inches apart. So apart there. So I'm going to say, let's go 1 1/4 inch. So we'll go 2 1/2 inches apart there. So I just make a line, a mark either side. So that's 2 1/2 inches apart. Next, I'm going to grab my double-sided tape and just pop a little smidge there. Take the backing off. Now this is where it is important, just triple check again that your straps are placed with that curve going outwards. So as you would have them, flip one up and over, so the lining side or underside is facing, and line up this point of the strap with the mark that you made, and just press down. Do the same for the other side, up and over, underside of strap showing, point meets this mark, press down. Because I'm using fabric for this strap, I'm just going to pop a pin in it just to hold it in place. Same again. Now there is later an option to apply rivets to reinforce this strap. I won't be using rivets, so I'm going to just sew a couple of lines back and forth. It just gives me an extra point of reinforcement. So back to the machine, just either base it on or sew a couple of lines. Okay, so we have now just roughly sewn on our straps. At this point, you could attach your stabilizer inside just to secure it. I'm probably going to do that now actually, because we're going to be flipping this up and over. Sewing this down will also help to hold the foam on the back side. So grab our last bit of 4mm foam. As I do, I'm just going to make sure it's center and just pop a couple of pins on the wrong side first. Let's get rid of that pin. It's covered in glue. That is of no use to me. Alright, same on that side. I'm going to flip it over from the right side. You can hold those pins in the back if you want to for now. But often it's better to remove them before you sew them in, and that would be a mighty pain in the bottom. Okay, up and over. Actually, no, I'll put it here. Okay, so just securing that foam down so it's not going to shift anywhere when we're sewing on this strap backing. There we go. Because, like I said previously in this video, because I use a domestic machine, I have to be wary of the bulk in my machine. So I don't want to have too much bulk by sewing the foam into the seam. So I always cut it back, that seam allowance. Next, I'm going to take my clips off. Give my tape one last press down. Remove the backing. Okie doke. Press it up and over. Just make sure you're really pressing down nice and evenly. Don't pull too hard, just so it sits flat against that line of stitching. Beautiful. Okay, back to the machine. We're going to do a line of top stitching at 1/8 of an inch around, and then another one at 1/4 inch around. So 2 lines of reinforcing stitching up the top and up the bottom. There we have it. So our strap backing has been sewn down with our 2 rows of top stitching both at the top and the bottom. I'm just going to remove the pins up the top, but I'll keep the ones down the bottom for now. So just from the wrong side. Oop, my foam went a little bit awry, but that's okay. So we are now going to attach our strap connector tabs. So we need to make a mark from the bottom of 1 3/8 of an inch. So just there, just on the sides there. Okay, if you have a good side of top stitching, my machine does, I'm just going to make sure that's facing up. So line up the bottom corner of the strap connector tab to that line. Oops, there we go. And then the other side as well. So same, that bottom point at that 1 3/8 of an inch line, and just do a couple of rows of basting stitches both sides to hold that in place. Okay, so there we have it. We have basted these strap connectors on. So what we're going to do, just to keep mainly the straps out the way, is attach our bottom strap through our buckle. So I'm going to go up from the back, above the part with the teeth, if you can see that. Pull it through. I'm going to pull it nice and tight just to give myself a little less that I have to worry about later. And through the bottom opening there, those teeth will stop it from pulling up. You can still feed it through to loosen it, but those teeth stop it from pulling back when someone is wearing this backpack. So same with this one, from the back, up, above the teeth, pull it through, down through that bottom opening, and just pull. There you go. So I'm going to take this over to my machine now. I'm going to take the bottom raw edge of this strap, I'm going to fold it once, twice, and then I'm going to fold it 3 times just to make sure that it's not going to go anywhere. So it's just about a 1 centimeter seam allowance when you do that. Just clip it there. Same with this one, 1 centimeter over once, twice, and 3 times, and just clip. And then I'm just going to do a line of stitching on both ends there. Once we have done that, we're going to grab our lining piece. We're going to pop this one on top there, line it up, and then baste around all the sides in preparation for doing our laptop gusset. So there we have it. Our back panel is now complete and looking really good. So we've basted the side connectors and also basted the exterior to our lining, which is our laptop pocket lining. So we're going to now move on with our gusset that's going to connect this back panel to the main side gusset. So just pop this aside for the moment. We need to retrieve our piece DD, our DD1 lining, and our zipper, 49.9 centimeters. I'm just going to singe those edges and grab your zipper pulls. You want to pop these on now. You really want to pop these on now. Trust me when I say that, because we are going to sew this zipper to our DD pieces. Okay. I promise you, these are the last zipper pulls you have to do. No more after this. I know it feels like it's been a slight marathon, but you know what? You're doing really well. And it is a serious bag. So you've done an excellent job so far. So what we need to do with this one is we are going to get our main exterior DD piece. Get your zipper tape, grab a couple of clips. Right side of zipper tape down to right side of DD. Clip. Now I'm going to baste because my zipper tape tends to slip on my machine. And the other side as well. Clip. Now if you're not basting, that's fine. You're braver than I am. I'll admit it. Okay, so we're going to baste this one there. And then once we have done that, or if you're choosing not to baste, we're going to grab our DD1 lining, right side down to wrong side of zipper, come across here, sew with 3/8 of an inch seam allowance or 1 centimeter seam allowance on both ends. Just make sure that neither the DD or DD1 pieces are twisted, okay? Just double check that. So then sew each end with a 1 centimeter seam allowance and come back. Okay, here is our completed gusset. Oh, little heart for all the work that you've done. So it might look like a bit of a mess at the moment, but don't worry, it'll make sense in a sec. Before we turn them to baste, I'm just going to trim those seam allowance corners. I'm just going to do it on my vinyl exterior. I'm not worried about the hex lining because it doesn't add much bulk. Okay, turn it right side out. Yep. There we go. Perfect. So, just even it out. Just manipulate it with your hands, and then I'm going to go along and I'm going to clip this together. So wrong sides together. All the way around. Just take your time. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my machine and we are going to top stitch these short ends and then baste both sides of the long strip. So top stitch short ends, base stitch for the rest of it. Okay, so I top stitched those short edges and base stitched around the rest, and I've also applied my binding tape. I just find it easier to do this sort of method with the loops. It's the same method I used for that front panel around the edges, so I've just applied that same method for this one here. Now we need to find the center, top and bottom, for this panel. It's going to make it a lot easier when we are applying it very shortly to our back panel. So I'm just going to line up those gussets there, into your nose. Find the top of our zipper tape, just a tiny little snip, same on the other side, and the bottom as well. Okay, there we go. So now that we've done that, we are going to clip our gusset to our back panel. So retrieve your back panel, grab your clips. So if you haven't marked the centers top and bottom of this back panel here, we're going to get our zipper gusset. Now if you are doing the binding method like I have, we are going to attach the side with the binding. So find the center. I did the smallest mark there ever, apparently. It's really, really tiny. Okay, clip that there. Just put a couple of clips along, so just make sure that your zipper is in fact at the top for this one. And now go to the bottom. This is probably where, just be careful with your straps. You can just try and tuck them out the way, or clip. I might actually clip them together, just these bottom bits. I don't want them flying around everywhere. There, I'll just clip them like that. Okay, find the bottom center marking, match it up to the bottom of the panel. Okay, now much like front panel earlier, continue clipping this gusset all the way around. Cue fast forward mode. Okay, there we have it. So it's clipped all the way around. Take this back to your machine, base stitch it. Make sure that you are happy with that. And then you're going to stay stitch with a 1/4 inch seam allowance around here. I will then finish off my binding because I've pre-attached it. However, if you are going to bind afterwards, that is that point where you're going to bind the edge of that panel. See you soon. Okay, we are back. It's another day now, so I have done my binding around this one here. If you don't do the binding, pre-attached binding method like I use, then now would be the time that you go ahead and attach the binding all the way around. What we're going to need to do now is attach it to our inside panel. So just pop that aside for now. I just realised I haven't actually attached them together. So this is the other side of the laptop pocket, and this is the interior panel that this is going to connect to. So I have just very naughtily got some self-adhesive stabilizer and I've just stuck it on there. Probably not best, use sew-in, but that's all I had really. I'm just going to take this to my machine and we just want to baste around that because again it is a bound finish, so we want to connect this just with the basting stitch to move on to the next step. Okay, I have basted that now. No doubt that was meant to be done in an earlier step, but I didn't. So, basted, that's the other side of our laptop pocket. So what we want to do, let's think about it from the back perspective. Our absolute back panel, and when we open up the zipper, we want to see the other side of that laptop pocket. So we're going to turn our gusset out. Not that it's by much, but we turn it out. Let's push out those corners to make it a little bit easier. Now I just prefer to do up my zipper tape just to clip it, then I'll undo it when I'm actually sewing it. So right sides of the laptop pocket together. Match up your center markings, which is on the other side, is it? Yep. All right, grab your clips. I'm going to clip around. So that top center marking, the bottom one, clip, perfect. Alright, once you have finished clipping all the way around it and matching up those edges, take it back to your machine and just do a basting stitch. You don't need to worry about binding at this stage because we are going to connect our main side gusset to this side. So clip it all, take it back to your machine and do a basting stitch around the perimeter. Okay, there we have it. I've basted around the edges, so our back panel to our laptop pocket with our luggage sleeve, not luggage sleeve, slip pocket inside. Now, this is the exciting bit because we're doing our final stage of construction. What we need to do is find our gusset. Now I have attached my binding tape, as I do. So again, not necessary, you can always bind after this step. We need to connect the back of the side gusset to this formed back panel. So I'm just going to tuck down the top of that back panel just to keep it out of the way. We want to attach it along where that zipper tape is, along the raw edges there. Make sure that when you're doing this, you're attaching the back side of this gusset, which is the side with the handle. We are going to find our centers. Did I mark it? Yes, I did. Look at me go. Wouldn't be the first time I haven't, and it probably won't be the last. Now I know this step might seem a bit scary. It really isn't. The fact that the gusset is stabilized actually helps you when you're doing this. It just can be a little bit bulky, obviously. It's not a small bag, so take your time, grab a coffee or tea, whatever your preference. I mean, or a wine, it's really up to you. Depends what time of the day it is there. Okay. Oh. Sometimes it can be tricky when you've done a vinyl base, but I am a sucker for punishment like that. Alright, so you are going to need to continue to pin all the way around it. I'm just going to do some little snips in the base here, just on those corners, just because of that vinyl. It will help me to form it around those corners, just on the side gusset. Just tiny, tiny, tiny little snips. I'm talking 1/8 of an inch. Really, that's about at the most. We don't need to do it much. Just to help me get around those corners and the other corner as well. Okay. I'm going to keep clipping. Let's roll fast forward and I'll see you back here in a sec. Okay, there we have it. So the side gusset is now sewn to the back panel. Last step of construction, people. We need to attach our front panel to this front gusset. So again, take your time. There is a lot of fabric here. There's a bit of bulk. All you need to do is just take your time, make sure that you don't rush this, because if you rush it, look, sometimes mistakes happen. So we need to get our completed front panel. We're going to turn it upside down. So your front pocket is going to go into the bag. So push it on down. Just nestle it in there because you want it right in there. We're focusing on this raw outer edge here. So I've just used a pin to mark my center because I was having trouble seeing it. All right, so last step. Are you excited? Did I mark the center? Yes, I did. Okay, so we're going to clip around here. Now, as you can see, I'll go back and show you the other side in a second. Let me just clip top and bottom first before I lose my way. Okay, take those pins out before I sew over them. So for the other side, nice and neat with our bound edge. If you are going to finish it with binding, great, cool, awesome, you do that. I just prefer this method, so otherwise you're going to sew the raw edges together and just fold your bias tape over and finish it that way. But you can see it's nice and neat. I do love a bound finish. I just feel like it's a neater finish on the bag and just gives it a bit more structure. Alright, so same as we did for the last side, you're going to go around and clip all these edges. I'm just going to do little cuts in those bottom corners again. Not because I need to stretch that gusset at all. I just find when I use vinyl, which possibly was against my better judgment on this one, but oh, live and learn. I find those little snips just really help me shape that gusset around. So we are now going to go to fast forward mode. We're going to clip all this. We're going to do the exact same method as we did for the last one. Baste, stay stitch, and bind. We go, all clipped. Imagine if we could clip that fast in real life. Back to the machine. I'm going to baste, I'm going to stay stitch, and then I'm going to bind, and guess what? So close to being finished. And there we have it. That front panel is now sewn on. I've finished my binding. I am really, really happy with it. It's time to turn it. Oh, get the muscle on. This does take a little bit of muscle to do, and there is a lot of pockets, but look, let's go through it together. Alright. So just push and pull and manipulate it as you need, because this bag will probably need to be stuffed and maybe pressed as well if you have fabric, used fabric that is fine with heat. Oh, I shouldn't try and talk and do this like a workout. Maybe I won't need to go to the gym tomorrow. Who knows? Alright. Like, you don't have to be delicate with it, but just be somewhat careful. Or get that rage out on the tube. Oh, goodness. Alright, so take the time just to push out those corners. Ah, this is exciting. I'm just going to do up the zippers before I get too excited. I've taken out my pins. There's a couple of little tiny threads that I just need to trim up. And there we have it. There is our completed Scholars Pack with our add-on front panel. I hope you are so proud of yourself because you've done a fantastic job if we got this far. It is a big bag. There's a lot of pockets in it. There's a lot involved, especially if you've done that laptop gusset. Look, there's a lot here, but you've done really well. Take a moment to have a look at your finished product. Neaten it up if you need to. Get rid of any loose threads, which is what I'm going to do now. Then I'm going to go take some nice photos of it as well and come back here. Look, this has been really fun. If you have any comments or feedback or suggestions, please pop them in the comments. Same as any pattern requests. Just write it down for me and I can see what I can do. Thank you again, everyone. All the best.